The year was 2087. Humans now lived on Mars and had bases on the Moon. Captain Han Taiwan stood on the bridge of the UES Serenity, Earth's best exploration ship. He looked at the stars through the large window and felt a sense of wonder. "Captain, I'm picking up strange readings," said Lieutenant Kim Ji-ho. She was the ship's xenobiologist and expert in alien life. Her fingers moved quickly over her screen as she studied the data. Captain Han walked to her station. "What kind of readings, Lieutenant?" "Energy patterns that don't seem natural," she replied. "They appear and disappear in a regular way. I think they might be artificial." Park Do-hyun, the science officer, joined them. His face showed excitement as he looked at the screen. "She's right, Captain. These patterns suggest intelligent design. Something is out there, and it's hiding from us." Captain Han nodded. "How far?" "Near the edge of our solar system," Park said. "Just beyond Neptune." Han turned to Lee Sun-mi, who handled communications. "Lieutenant Lee, are you picking up any signals?" Lee adjusted her headset. "Yes, sir. Very faint. Not like anything I've heard before." She pressed buttons on her console. "Listen." A strange sound played through the bridge speakers. It wasn't random noise, it had patterns like a language but unlike any human tongue. "Set course for the source of those signals," Captain Han ordered, "but approach with caution. All crew to alert status." 3 days later, the UES Serenity slowed as it reached the coordinates. What they found made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Hidden in the darkness was a structure about the size of a small moon. It had a smooth metallic surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "It's some kind of observation post," Park said, studying his instruments. "And from the energy readings, it's been here for decades, watching us." Captain Han was about to give an order when Lee called out, "Captain, massive energy spike." In front of the strange structure, space itself seemed to tear open. A bright blue light poured from the tear, and through it came ships. Many ships. They were sleek and crystalline, shimmering with an inner light. The largest was the size of a small city. "Shields up, ready weapons, but do not fire," Han ordered. "Try to hail them on all frequencies." Lee tried to establish contact, but before she could finish, a beam of pale light shot from the largest alien ship and engulfed the Serenity. All systems went dead. "Emergency power," Han shouted, but nothing happened. The ship drifted helplessly. A voice spoke in perfect Korean, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Human vessel, you will not be harmed if you do not resist. We are the Viridian Collective. We have come to correct an imbalance." Captain Han woke in a bright white room. His uniform was gone, replaced by a simple gray jumpsuit. He sat up quickly, looking around. The room had no visible doors or windows, just smooth, glowing walls. "Captain, you're awake." It was Kim Ji-ho. She sat in a corner with Park Do-hyun and Lee Sun-mi. They all wore the same gray jumpsuits. "Where are we? Where's the rest of the crew?" Han asked. "We're on their ship, we think," Park said. "The rest of the crew is probably in other rooms like this one. We've been here for about 6 hours." Suddenly, a section of wall became transparent. On the other side stood 3 tall beings. They had humanoid shapes but were made of a semi-transparent crystal material. Blue light pulsed through their bodies like blood in veins. Where a human would have eyes, they had clusters of small glowing points. The middle figure spoke, its mouth not moving. The voice came directly into their minds. "I am High Commander Nex of the Viridian Collective. You are not prisoners, but specimens. We have studied your kind for many cycles. You are an anomaly that must be corrected." Captain Han stepped forward. "What do you mean by anomaly? Why have you invaded our space?" The alien's lights pulsed faster. "Invasion implies hostility. We are not hostile. We are corrective. Your species suffers from a dangerous condition that threatens the stability of this sector." Kim moved beside Han. "What condition?" "You call it emotion," Nex replied. "It makes you unpredictable, dangerous. We have evolved beyond such primitive responses. Our neural networks operate on pure logic and efficiency," Park whispered to Han. "Look at their bodies, Captain. Those aren't natural beings. They've integrated technology into their physical forms." Han addressed Nex again. What do you plan to do with us? With Earth? We will stabilize your world through emotional correction, Nex said. The process has already begun. Your major population centers are now under dampening fields. Within one standard cycle, your species will begin to experience the benefits of emotional suppression. Lee gasped. You're trying to change us, make us like you? We offer improvement, Nex replied. Emotion leads to conflict. Conflict leads to destruction. We have eliminated conflict from 12 systems before yours. Those civilizations now contribute productively to the collective. And if we refuse this improvement? Han asked, his voice firm. The lights in Nex's body dimmed slightly. Refusal would be unfortunate. Resistance would require more aggressive correction methods. We prefer cooperation. Han stepped closer to the transparent wall. You can't just remove what makes us human. That is precisely what we can and will do, Nex responded. What you call humanity is simply a collection of chemical responses that create chaotic patterns in your neural systems. These patterns lead to irrational behaviors. We will help you evolve beyond them. With that, the wall became solid again, leaving the 4 humans alone. They're going to try to change everyone on Earth, Lee said, her voice shaking. Make them emotionless. They're afraid of us, Kim said suddenly. The others looked at her. Did you notice how Nex's lights dimmed when the captain showed anger? I think our emotions actually disturbed them somehow. Park nodded slowly. It makes sense. If they've engineered emotion out of themselves, they might be genuinely uncomfortable around beings who feel deeply. Captain Han sat down, his face serious. Then we need to understand how our emotions affect them. It might be our only advantage. What can we do from here? Lee asked. Han looked at each of them. We observe, we learn, and we don't stop feeling no matter what they do to us. If emotions disturb them, then our humanity might be our best weapon. Outside their room, unseen by the humans, High Commander Nex conferred with another Viridian. These specimens show concerning levels of emotional contagion. The one called Han generates particularly disruptive patterns. Increase monitoring on all subjects. The second Viridian's lights pulsed in acknowledgement. Should we begin emotional suppression treatments? Not yet, Nex replied. I want to study their responses further. There is something about these humans that does not match our previous encounters with emotional species. As Nex moved away, a barely perceptible shudder passed through its crystalline form, something very much like worry, an emotion the Viridians had supposedly eliminated centuries ago. 6 months passed. Earth was now under Viridian control. Their ships hovered over major cities, casting large shadows. In each city, tall towers had been built. These towers sent out invisible waves that made people feel less and less each day. Choi, Minsu walked through the streets of what was once Seoul. The city looked the same, but the people had changed. They moved like robots, their faces blank, their eyes empty. Choi kept his head down, pretending to be like them. He worked in a Viridian processing facility. Every day he watched as more of the strange technology was built. The Viridians didn't do the work themselves. They made humans do it. Choi had lost his wife and son during the first days of the invasion. They had been in Busan when the Viridians attacked anyone who fought back. Now he lived only to fight the aliens in his own, quiet way. Inside the facility, Choi waited until no one was looking. Then he took out a small tool and made a tiny change to a machine part. It wouldn't stop working right away. It would work for days, maybe weeks, then fail at a critical moment. He had been doing this for months. As he finished, he heard a soft voice. I know what you're doing. Choi turned quickly. A woman stood there watching him. He recognized her as Dr. Kang Soo-jin. She worked in the research section of the facility. I don't know what you mean, Choi said, his heart beating fast. Dr. Mai. Kang stepped closer. Don't worry, I'm not going to report you. She looked around to make sure no one could hear them. In fact, I want to help. Later that night, Choi met Dr. Kang in an old basement that had once been a storage room. The Viridians rarely came underground. They preferred to stay in their ships or in the tall buildings they had taken over. I've been studying them, Dr. Kang said. She was a neurologist who had been forced to work for the Viridians. They're trying to change how our brains work. They want to remove our emotions. But why? Choi asked. They fear us, Dr. Kang said. Not our weapons or technology. They're far beyond us in those ways. They fear our feelings, especially strong ones like love, hope, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. She showed Choi some papers with brain scans on them. Look at these. When humans show strong emotions, especially compassion or self-sacrifice, it creates brain waves that actually disturb Viridian neural systems. It's like our emotions create a frequency they can't handle. Choi thought about this. So our feelings hurt them somehow? Not exactly hurt, more like confuse them, make their systems unstable. Dr. Kang put the papers away. I think they removed emotions from their species long ago. Maybe they see them as a weakness or a disease. Can we use this against them? Choi asked. Before Dr. Kang could answer, there was a knock at the door. They froze. Then a voice said, "It's Yoon Ji-woo. Let me in." Dr. Kang relaxed and opened the door. A thin man with tired eyes entered. Sorry I'm late. The patrols are getting stricter. Yoon had been a cultural anthropologist before the invasion. Now he connected people who wanted to fight back. He looked at Choi. So you're the saboteur from Section 7. Good work. Those frequency disruptors you damaged last week gave us 10 minutes without monitoring in District 4. It wasn't enough, Choi said. It was a start, Yoon replied. And with Dr. Kang's research, we might have something better. Miles above Earth on the Viridian mothership, Captain Han and his remaining crew were still prisoners. They had been separated and tested many times, but the Viridians kept bringing them back together to observe their interactions. They're fascinated by how we support each other, Lieutenant Kim told Han quietly. They sat in a large white room with 20 other humans from the Serenity. Guards stood at the edges, watching. Han had noticed something strange about these guards. When humans showed kindness to each other, sharing food, comforting someone who was sad, helping the weak, the guards seemed to step back slightly, as if uncomfortable. Have you seen how they react when we help each other? Han asked. Kim nodded. Yes, and it's stronger with genuine emotions. When Sergeant Ryu was crying about his family yesterday, and Lee Sunmi hugged him, the guard nearest them actually left the room. Park Do-hyun joined their conversation. I've been watching them too. Their lights dim when we show strong feelings. It's like they can't process what we're doing. Or they don't want to, Han said. Maybe seeing emotions reminds them of something they lost. As they talked, a new guard entered the room. This one was different. Its crystal body had a slight green tint, and its lights pulsed in an unusual pattern. It moved directly to their group. You will come with me, it said into their minds. High Commander Nex wishes to speak with you. Back on Earth, the resistance group had grown. Dr. Kang had developed a small device that could measure emotional wavelengths. She believed these wavelengths could disrupt Viridian technology if they were strong enough. The problem is, she explained, to the group gathered in the basement, we need very strong emotional responses to make this work. And with the dampening fields, most people can barely feel anything anymore. What about us? Asked a woman named Joan Hyejin. We can still feel. We've been meeting away from the towers. A few people aren't enough, Dr. Kang said. We need more. Choi, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. What if we could disrupt the dampening field even for a short time? If people could feel again, even for an hour? They might remember who they are, Yoon finished. It could create a wave of emotion strong enough to affect the Viridians. But how do we disrupt the field? Someone asked. Choi smiled slightly. I've been studying their technology for months. The towers need to recalibrate every 7 days. During that time, there's a 3-minute window when the field weakens. If we could extend that window, we would need to hit all the towers at once, Yoon said. That would take coordination we don't have yet. Then we start small, Dr. Kang suggested. One district, a test. They all looked at each other. It was dangerous. If they failed, they would certainly be caught and corrected, the Viridian process that left humans empty shells. "I'll do it," Choi said firmly. "For my wife and son." "Not alone," Yoon replied. He looked around the room. "We need to form cells. Across the city, then across the world. We'll call ourselves Humanity Preserved, because that's what we're fighting for." Dr. Kang nodded. "The Viridians think emotions are our weakness. We need to show them it's our strength." On the mothership, Captain Han stood before High Commander Nex. The alien's crystal body towered over him, blue lights pulsing slowly. "Your species continues to resist correction," Nex said. "Some humans still generate emotional patterns despite our dampening fields." "That's because you can't remove what makes us human," Han replied. "Humanity is merely a collection of biological processes," Nex said. "It can be improved." "You mean changed into something else?" Han countered. "Something like you." The lights in Nex's body flickered. "We offer perfection, stability, an end to suffering, an end to feeling," Han said. "That's not perfection. That's just existence." For a moment, Nex was silent. Then, "You believe your emotions give you strength. They do not. They make you vulnerable. They make you weak." Han stepped closer, looking directly at the points of light that served as Nex's eyes. "If that's true, why are you afraid of them?" The room suddenly felt colder. Nex's lights dimmed, then brightened. "We fear nothing. We simply correct dangerous anomalies." But Han had seen it, a reaction, a flicker of something almost like fear. "Take him back," Nex ordered the guard. As Han was led away, he knew he had found something important. The Viridians weren't just trying to improve humans. They were afraid of what humans were. Dr. Kang Soo-jin worked late into the night in her hidden lab. The room was small, once a storage closet in the basement of an old hospital. Around her were strange devices made from both human and Viridian technology. "Is it working?" Choi Min-soo asked. He had just returned from his shift at the processing facility. His eyes were tired but hopeful. Dr. Kang pointed to a small machine on the table. It had wires coming out of it and a screen that showed changing patterns of light. "I call it the emotional resonance amplifier," she said. "It can capture the wavelengths our brains make when we feel strong emotions. Then it can send those wavelengths out, making them stronger." Yoon Ji-woo picked up the device. "So small, yet so important. How do we use it?" "We need to record strong emotional moments," Dr. Kang explained. "Real ones, not fake. The Viridians can tell the difference. Their systems only react to genuine emotions." "What kind of emotions work best?" Choi asked. "Compassion, love, self-sacrifice," Dr. Kang said. "The things that make us most human." She looked at Choi. "Things like what you feel for your lost family." Choi looked away, his jaw tight. Yoon put a hand on Choi's shoulder. "We'll find ways to gather these emotions. There are still people hiding from the dampening fields. People who can still feel. And we need to test it," Dr. Kang added. "See if it really affects the Viridians like I think it will." On the Viridian mothership, Captain Han and his crew had made a discovery. The aliens kept them together to study their interactions, not realizing this was a mistake. "They don't understand what they're seeing," Lieutenant Kim said quietly. The crew sat in a circle talking while their guards watched from a distance. "What do you mean?" Han asked. "They see us talking, sharing food, helping each other," Kim explained. "But they don't understand why we do it. They think it's primitive behavior they can study and then fix." Park Do-hyun nodded. "They don't realize we're stronger together, that our connections give us power." Han had been thinking about something. "Have you noticed that one guard? The one with the greenish tint?" The others nodded. That guard was different. It watched them more closely. Sometimes it seemed almost curious. "I'm going to try something," Han said. "Tonight, when that guard is on duty, I want everyone to share stories. Real stories. About people you love. Times when someone helped you. Moments that matter." That night, when the green-tinted guard came on duty, the humans gathered in a circle. One by one, they began to share stories. Lee Sunmi went first. "My grandmother raised me after my parents died," she said. "She worked 2 jobs to put me through school. Even when she was tired, she never complained. She just said, 'Your future is worth every minute.'" As she spoke, tears came to her eyes. Around the room, others nodded, some wiping away their own tears. The Viridian Guard moved closer, its lights pulsing faster. Park Do-hyun spoke next. "When I was young, I got lost in the mountains during a storm. A stranger found me. He gave me his coat and carried me for 3 hours to find help. I never knew his name." More stories followed. Stories of love, sacrifice, and kindness. With Sci-Fi, each one the guard moved closer. Its lights flickered in strange patterns. Finally, Captain Han spoke. "My father taught me that real strength isn't about power. It's about lifting others up when they need it most. That's what makes us human." The guard was very close now. Suddenly, its mental voice spoke to them, something no guard had ever done before. "These stories. They create patterns I have not seen before." Everyone fell silent, surprised. Han looked directly at the guard. "What is your name?" The guard was quiet for a moment, then, "I am called Vex." "You're different from the others," Han said. "I am defective," Vex replied. "I was born with neural patterns that resist complete correction. I am sent to study you because my defect makes me less vulnerable to your emotional disruptions." "What defect?" Kim asked gently. "I can feel," Vex said, the word strange in their minds. "Not like you, but more than others of my kind." Han moved closer to Vex. "Tell us about your people. Why do they fear emotions so much?" Vex's lights dimmed. "Long ago, before we traveled between stars, my people suffered from conflict, wars, hatred. Our leaders decided emotions were the cause. They created technology to remove what they called the emotional disease. But some refused. They said without emotions, we would lose what made us, us." "What happened to them?" Han asked. "They were exiled, sent away on ships never to return," Vex said. "It is forbidden to speak of them, but sometimes I wonder if you might be their descendants." Back on Earth, the resistance was growing. Small groups formed in cities around the world. Using coded messages hidden in Viridian communication systems, they shared Dr. Kang's plans. In Seoul, the first test was ready. Choi had found a way to extend the recalibration window of one dampening tower from 3 minutes to 15 minutes. "That's all we get," he told the group. 15 minutes when people in that district will start to feel again." "Will it be enough?" someone asked. Dr. Kang nodded. "If we're ready with the emotional resonance amplifier, yes. We need people there to create strong emotional moments the instant the field drops." Yoon had been organizing these people for weeks. Families that had been separated, friends who hadn't seen each other in months, children who had been away from their parents. "They'll be there," he promised. "And when they see each other, when they feel again after so long, the emotional wave will be powerful," Dr. Kang finished. The day of the test arrived. Choi entered the Viridian facility as usual. No one looked twice at him. The aliens rarely came to this section, leaving human supervisors in charge. These supervisors had been among the first to go through correction. They had no emotions left to feel or betray. At exactly the right moment when the tower began its recalibration, Choi made his move. He quickly connected a small device to the main control panel. Numbers on the screen changed. The 3-minute window was now 15 minutes. Choi pressed a button on his communicator. "It's done. You have 15 minutes." Across the district, members of Humanity Preserved brought people together in a small park. Family members who hadn't seen each other since the invasion. Friends separated by the Viridians' work assignments, Zoys. The dampening field weakened. Something amazing happened. People began to wake up as if from a long sleep. They looked around with clear eyes. They saw loved ones they thought were lost. The reunions were powerful. Parents hugged children. Friends embraced, crying. For 15 precious minutes, humanity returned to that small part of Seoul. Dr. Kang watched through tears of her own as her device recorded the emotional wavelengths. The screen showed spikes higher than she had ever seen. "It's working," she whispered. Then she pressed a button. The recorded emotions played back through the device, amplified 100 times. The wavelengths spread out in all directions. 2 blocks away, a Viridian patrol stopped suddenly. The crystal beings froze, their lights flickering wildly. One fell to its knees. Another's lights went completely dark. The human supervisors with them looked confused. Their emotions were too suppressed to be affected by the device, but they had never seen Viridians act this way. Yoon grabbed Dr. Kang's arm. "We need to go, now." As they escaped, they heard alarms beginning to sound. The 15 minutes were up, but they had what they needed. Proof that the human weapon worked. That night, as the resistance celebrated their small victory, Dr. Kang made an announcement. "Today was just a test," she said, "but now we know it works. Our emotions, our humanity, hurts them. With bigger amplifiers and a coordinated global effort, we can do more than disrupt a few patrols. We can disable their entire system." Choi, who rarely smiled since losing his family, allowed himself a small one now. "We have a chance," he said softly. "A real chance." High above, in orbit, High Commander Nex received the report of the disturbance. For the first time since the invasion began, the lights in its crystal body showed a pattern that looked almost like concern. 3 months had passed since the first test. The resistance group Humanity Preserved had grown stronger. Using hidden communications, they had connected with similar groups around the world. Choi Min-soo looked at the map spread on the table. It showed cities across Earth, each with a small light indicating where resistance cells were active. "Are we ready?" he asked. Dr. Kang Soo-jin nodded. "The new amplifiers are much stronger. Each group has one now." Yoon Ji-woo pointed to different spots on the map. "We've identified the recalibration schedule for dampening towers worldwide. If we move at exactly the right time, we can create a 15-minute window everywhere." 15 minutes to wake up the world, Choi said quietly. The plan was bigger than their first test. This time, resistance members would disable dampening towers in every major city at the same time. As people began to feel again, emotional events would be ready. The amplifiers would capture and broadcast these feelings, creating a wave of humanity that would sweep across Earth. "What about the mothership?" Dr. Kang asked. "Even if we disable the Viridians on Earth, there are still thousands up there." No one had an answer. Then a young woman named Song Mina spoke up. "Maybe we already have help up there." Everyone looked at her. Song had been quiet until now. She worked as a cleaner in a Viridian communication center. "Yesterday, I saw a message from the mothership," she explained. It mentioned problems with the human prisoners. Something about emotional contamination spreading to a guard. On the mothership, Captain Han and his crew had been busy. For weeks they had been sharing stories, songs, and poems with Vex. The Viridian's curiosity had grown. It asked more questions each day. "Why do humans risk themselves for others?" Vex asked. "It is not logical." "It's not about logic," Han explained. "It's about connection. We feel tied to each other." Vex's lights pulsed slowly. "I have been changing. When you share your stories, I feel something. It is against all Viridian teaching, but I want to feel more." Lieutenant Kim looked at Han. "Vex might not be the only one. If emotions are part of Viridian biology, maybe they can't be completely removed, just suppressed." Han nodded. "Vex, are there others like you? Others who might have these feelings?" "There are some," Vex admitted. "We hide it. Those who show emotion are sent for correction." "What? If you could help your people remember what they've lost?" Han asked. "Would you help us?" Vex was quiet for a long time. "What do you need?" The day of the global resistance arrived. Across Earth at precisely the same moment, dampening towers began their recalibration. In each city, resistance members, extended the window to 15 minutes. As the tower's effects weakened, people began to wake up from their emotional sleep. In parks, squares, and streets, carefully planned reunions took place. Families found each other. Friends embraced. Musicians played songs that spoke of love and hope. In Seoul, Choi stood with Dr. Kang as people filled a central square. Among them was a young boy who had been separated from his dog during the invasion. Resistance members had found the dog and kept it safe. Now, as the boy saw his pet again, his joy was pure and complete. The dog ran to him, tail wagging wildly, and the boy fell to his knees, hugging his friend as tears streamed down his face. Dr. Kang's amplifier captured this moment, along with hundreds of others happening around them. Similar scenes played out. In cities worldwide, each one captured and amplified. The combined emotional wavelengths swept across Earth like an invisible tide. Viridians everywhere froze as their neural networks struggled to process the flood of feelings. Some collapsed, others fled to their ships. On the mothership, Vex had given Captain Han access to the central communication system. As the emotional wave rose from Earth, Han did something unexpected. "I'm not going to attack them," he told his crew. "I'm going to help them remember." With Vex's help, Han broadcast the stories his crew had shared over the past months. Tales of human kindness, courage, and love. He sent them to every corner of the mothership, to every Viridian who could hear. "We offer you what you lost," Han's voice said throughout the ship. "Not weakness, but strength. The strength to care, to connect, to be more than machines." High Commander Nex felt the broadcast hit like a physical blow. The crystal body that had stood tall for centuries seemed to bend. Memories long suppressed began to surface, of a time before the correction, when Viridians had families, when they cared for each other, when they were not so different from humans. "Stop this," Nex commanded, but its voice was weak. All around, Viridians were experiencing the same awakening. Some fought it. Others, like Vex, embraced it. Nex gave a final order: "Destroy Earth. End this contamination." But the order was not obeyed. The weapons remained silent. The Viridians who should have carried out the command were frozen in place, their lights flickering with new patterns of emotion they had not felt for 1,000 years. Vex opened the door to the humans' room. "Come," it said. "It is time to speak with Nex." On Earth, the 15 minutes had passed, but the effect remained. The emotional wave had disabled Viridian technology everywhere. The dampening towers stood silent. People remained awake, feeling human again. Choi looked up at the sky. The Viridian ships still hung there, but they no longer seemed threatening. They were still, as if waiting. "Did we win?" someone asked. "I don't know," Dr. Kang replied honestly. "But something has changed." On the mothership, Captain Han stood before High Commander Nex. The once mighty Viridian seemed smaller now, its light dimmer. "What have you done to us?" Nex asked, its mental voice unsteady. "We reminded you of who you once were," Han said simply, "before you cut away part of yourselves." Nex looked at Vex, standing beside the humans. "You are part of this rebellion." "I found what was missing," Vex replied. "We all lost something precious when our ancestors chose logic over feeling." "Emotions caused war," Nex argued. "Suffering. Chaos." "Yes," Han agreed. "But they also create peace, joy, connection. You can't have one without the other. That's the price of being alive, not just existing." Around them, more Viridians gathered, their lights pulsed in new rhythms. "What happens now?" Nex asked. "That's up to you," Han said. "But I think both our peoples have something to learn from each other. You've mastered technology and logic. We've held on to our humanity, even when it hurts. Maybe together we find a better balance." 1 month later, Choi Min-soo stood in the same square in Seoul. The Viridian ships were still there, but they were changed. Their crystal surfaces now shimmered with colors that hadn't been there before. Beside him stood Dr. Kang Yoon and a Viridian. This one called itself Lux. It had volunteered to be among the first to undergo the remembering process, a reversal of the emotional suppression that had defined Viridian society for centuries. Not all of my people have chosen this path, Lux explained, its mental voice carrying nuances of feeling that would have been impossible before. Some fear what they might become. Change is always scary, Dr. Kang said. But necessary, Lux added. We had forgotten that without emotions, existence has no meaning. You humans reminded us of that. In the center of the square, human children played with small crystal devices the Viridians had made for them, toys that responded to feelings, glowing brighter with joy or gentler with calm. Near them, a young Viridian child, the firstborn since the remembering began, watched with what could only be described as curiosity. As one human child noticed it and offered a toy, the Viridian child's lights flickered in a new pattern. Is that? Choi began. Yes, Lux said, its voice filled with wonder. It's smiling. The first Viridian smile in 1,000 years. What the aliens had feared most had in the end saved them both.